Tonight, I'm going to reveal the full extent of the contribution of the 200,000 Somalians who have immigrated to the United Kingdom. That is a major contribution to the welfare system and not much of a contribution to the economy. This is not a video to have a downer on Somalis. It is simply much more to give you the opportunity to take one case study, one example of one country, and see what you think about this story that the establishment is not trying to destroy the country through uncontrolled immigration. They genuinely believe it benefits the economy. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe, but also please do join the Patriot Fund. I'll be touring around the country trying to spread the word, to give you the information on how to oppose two-tier policing, how to fight for democracy, and how to try and stop the establishment railroading us. Well, I've made a mistake on this channel actually over the years. Well, I say over the years, over the year that I've been properly running it. I've always said that what happens with the Treasury is that they talk about immigration to the country expanding the economy. And what they mean by that is, if you have one person come to the economy earning 15,000 a year, then that expands the economy by £15,000, right? Now, somebody in their 20s who comes to the United Kingdom who's earning less than 40 grand a year because they need things like housing and schooling for their kids and all that, they will be a net recipient. So what happens is the economy grows so the Treasury can be happy, but our individual levels of wealth decline. And I think most people can see that since uncontrolled immigration has started in Britain, we have become poorer. Now, you could say there's a causal link there. Is it that the 2008 financial crisis was the reason and we're just blaming migrants? Okay, fair enough. I accept that. But nonetheless, at the same time as the strategy of uncontrolled immigration has taken place, we've become poorer. So now let's look at our friends from Somalia. First of all, the most famous Somalian, Samo Farah, we're not supposed to tell you this. He actually lives in the United States of America, born in Somalia, lived in London for a short period of time, trains in the United States of America, designates himself as British for the purposes of his knighthood, doesn't even pay any tax in Britain. Well, okay, fair enough. That is his legal right, and I suppose he has a British passport. But here we go. Why don't I read you some of these statistics, which what I might do is I might copy and paste them in the description so you've got them. Here we go. So as of 2008, 31.4% of Somali men were economically inactive. That means they haven't got a job and they're not attempting to get one. 84.2% of Somali women were economically inactive. Of those who were economically active, so this is the remaining bit, these are people who are either working or trying to get a job, only 40% of Somali men and 9% of Somali women were employed. So what that means is, I mean, I'm not going to do the complex mathematics, but basically so effectively 84% of Somali women are economically inactive, i.e. not trying to get a job. That means 15% are trying to get a job or are in employment. And of that 15%, only 40% of them have actually got a job. The rest are claiming unemployment benefit. So of the 15%, 8 are claiming unemployment benefit, 7 are actually working. So that is 7% of Somali migrant women have a job. Unbelievable. Okay, according to the census, overall in 2021, obviously these figures change, the overall figure of economic activity, inactivity was 47.1%. That meant that of all Somalians who've come to the UK, half of them do not have a job and are not attempting to get one. And remember, the half that are either in employment or trying to get a job are also partially unemployed. Okay, 20% of Somalians in the UK own their own home. The other 80% are renting. And in fact, the 72% of Somalians who live in the UK, according to 2021 census, are in social housing. That means that the typical Somalian who comes to the UK will be on unemployment benefit, his wife will be economically inactive, and they will live in a council house. The average contribution of a Somalian to the United Kingdom is negative. That is to say, they are more likely to be a drain than they are to be an advantage. Now, we've got other statistics here, which is of all housing in the United Kingdom, 15% of social housing is outside the of people born outside the United Kingdom. But it's now the majority in most cities where people who are born outside the United Kingdom will be migrants. And what you tend to see, funnily enough, David Starkey gave me this example. If you go around Bloomsbury, where flats are maybe £1 million and houses are £5 million, you see that all the shops tend to cater for a comparatively cheap clientele. That's because in the most wealthy districts of the United Kingdom now, the most common residential population will be penniless migrants. That is to say, there's a large number of empty properties and the rest are taken up by council tenants. And so you're in the ludicrous situation of people who have an actual job having to get the train to work, travelling through those wealthier areas, which are now dominated by people who are economically inactive. Now, let's talk more widely about the contribution of Somalia. Well, of course, we know about CAT, the drug that they've brought to the United Kingdom, which leaves a lot of them comatose a lot of the time. Also, we know that radical Islam is something that they've brought to the United Kingdom. And we know that the machete culture of Africa and knife crime culture of Africa has come to Britain. Now, let me tell you this. People constantly say, Britain has been culturally enriched by immigration. Well, look, if culture from abroad enriches your culture, it will enrich it with both the good points and the bad points. Hard to think of anything good about Somalian culture, but I'm sure there are some things. But of course, the bad bit, which is knife crime and tribalism, we have seen that enter our streets. There's always been a problem with knives and gun crime indeed, but we've seen an explosion of it since African migration has really come to the UK lock, stock and barrel. So I suppose what we have to say is this. You, the British taxpayer, are paying an enormous amount of money for these 200,000 Somalians. Do you feel you've got good value for money? The claim that they've expanded the economy is nonsense. The fact that they've made you poorer is demonstrably provable. Whether the culture that they've brought to the country, things like mutty magic, voodooism, radical Islam and knife crime culture, whether those things you consider to be a benefit to the United Kingdom, I personally don't. And also, what about the fact that Britain, or certainly cities, now feel like a foreign land? If you look now at the wealth of the United Kingdom, you see that there are wealthy hinterlands like where I'm living here in Berkshire, and then the town centres and city centres are incredibly poor, now really heading for the GDP that is beneath the African countries they came from. That is something which I believe is a sad thing. And now the cities have become a huge economic burden on the United Kingdom. Cities like Birmingham, where significant regeneration is going to be needed. And also, the next thing is this. When will these tribal areas UDI? We know that Sadiq Khan wanted London to become an independent country so it could rejoin the EU. He wasn't doing that because of factional Pakistanism, if indeed that's a word. But we do know now that there are areas which are saying, hey, look, we feel we must have much more self-governance because this is a Pakistani area, this is a Bangladeshi area, not a British area. And that call for self-governance and independence, I think, will become much more significant in the next few years. And so the territorial claims of these people will be something that I believe may potentially even descend into violence. All of that, and we're told that immigration is a marvellous thing. Till next time, goodbye.